So for this problem, we want to find the derivative f prime of negative 1, given that we have some information, but not a lot. It's going to be a little bit of a puzzle, this one. We are told that f of x is equal to x to the 7th times h of x. We're also told that h of negative 1 is equal to 2, and h prime of negative 1 is equal to 5. Not a lot of information. But let's just use our product rule again on our function f of x, and we'll start to see that what we need and the information that we're given, we'll be able to use it to solve this problem, finding f prime of negative 1. So finding f prime of x then, once again using the product rule, let's let x to the 7th be our function f, and I know we're using f here again, so I apologize for the duplicate name, and then h of x would be our function g. So let's take the derivative of x to the 7th, which would be 7x to the 6th times h of x, and then we're going to add to it the derivative of our second function. Now we don't know what h of x is, so we'll just call it h prime of x, because isn't that the derivative of h of x? It is, times x to the 7th. Okay, looks a little messy, but it's really not going to be so bad. Let's think about factoring. What do these terms, this term and this term, have in common? Well, I see that they both have x to the 6th in them, so let me go ahead and factor out the x to the 6th. And then what will that leave me here? It will leave me 7h of x plus x times h prime of x. Still looks a little messy, but think about, what are we looking for? We're looking to solve f prime of negative 1, which means that everywhere we see x here, we're going to replace that x with negative 1. So I'll have here negative 1 to the 6th power times 7 times h of negative 1 plus negative 1 times h prime of negative 1. Okay, so it looks like we don't have too much left to do, because what I just underlined are things that we were given. So fortunately, we know that h of negative 1 is 2. So let me simplify a little bit. Negative 1 to the 6th, negative 1 to any even power will be a positive 1, because think of it as pairs. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So we will have a positive 1 here times 7, and then what was h of negative 1? Was 2. 7 times 2 plus negative 1, h prime of negative 1 was 5. Okay. We could disregard now this 1 that's in front, because it's just a 1. So we'll have here 14, 7 times 2, plus 1 times negative 1 times 5, or minus 5, which is 9. So f prime of negative 1, our solution is 9. Bye.